Now joined by Max Olson, theathletic.com on 365 Sports. Max, you've been busy with the national letter of intent no longer, how that changes things up, the trend of like entering the portal to transfer. Busy week for you.
Yeah, always fun to have lots of NCAA news in the middle of a football season, right, guys? I mean, that's just we nothing we love more than talking about NCAA politics. So yeah, let's do it.
Well, Max, let's just get out there. What does that mean to you? The getting rid of the national letter of intent. Like, to me, I see it, and I don't think it changes much. I don't think it changes the tampering, but like there are some particulars here. So does anything for the general public out there really matter, or does it change the way it operates in notable ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reality is just that next year, in the this next school year, just the agreement between student athlete and school is just going to look very different, obviously, because of the financial implications of the House settlement, which is now been approved. So I think you're talking about a different document that you're going to need them to sign, and what are going to be the restrictions on that, we'll see. But yeah, I think it's part of it is just kind of recognition that the letter of intent program probably doesn't make as much sense as it always did in kind of that future. I do think one thing that's curious about it is the NCAA put it out there that in the past when transfers have committed to schools, you can sign like a grant and aid, and then school can announce, yeah, they're coming here. But really, anybody could call that recruit, that transfer recruit, and try to flip them, try to offer them more money to try to flip them, because they were still kind of fair game until they showed up at your school and started taking classes. And so, and I know we've seen that in basketball too. So, like, I think the NCAA has announced that now those guys are going to be able to sign financial documents or whatever, and from that point forward, recruiting communication would be prohibited with other schools. Now, of course, when I put that out there, everybody kind of quote tweeted that and was just like, yeah, well, no one's actually going to follow that. And they're probably right. But, it is one of those topics that, there's a chance to try to maybe have a little bit of reform.
Does that help you or hurt you and how you have handled the transfer portal and reported it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, once somebody commits somewhere, we would love for that to be the end of the story, especially when you put up a news story on ESPN, you hope that you don't have to go back and write a different news story a week later that they flip somewhere else. But that's just kind of been the reality of, how this stuff goes. So, yeah, I mean, if it could be a deal where it is kind of like recruits on signing day where, okay, they've signed, it's over, no more battling over them, then, that would be, I think, a relief for coaches and for me as well.
Max, you also wrote about the redshirt, like random kind of like, oh, I'm going to redshirt, 4 games in thing going on. It's not like it appears to be one of those things where people think it's like a rash across college football. Now, it's probably more than it's expected, but how strange and peculiar is it to kind of see that middle of the season guys now saying like, no, I'm going to redshirt and leave. And most of them haven't played that much, but there are the guys like Bear Alexander or Xavier Townsend who were part of the rotation and playing a lot that also decided to do it.
Yeah, it's we've seen a bunch, on October 1st, guys that are going to be grad transfers can start going in the portal. So you kind of see players starting to make some decisions around that opening up. I just think the 4-game redshirt rule, I think a lot of people look at that now as like, you're kind of trying to figure out how do I maximize my eligibility, because there's still just a ton of players. And if you go down the list of like the notable guys who decided to redshirt, a bunch of them are guys that were from 2020 and, have an extra year, and maybe they've played 3 years, 4 years. They didn't use their redshirt at the start of it. So you're going to redshirt now and have an extra year next year. And I think that's just kind of the thought process for some of these guys that still have time left on the clock. Obviously you're just not going to really see like great players go and make that kind of decision, because it's usually guys that are, falling behind on the depth chart who are not playing as much as they want. I mean, even Bear Alexander was playing a lot, but people in his camp felt like, he should be playing 40 snaps a game and not 20. And I think that's just kind of the decision making you're going to see from people who, if they go in the portal, they're going to make a lot of money either way. So they're trying to, you get to your junior year, you're trying to maximize the NFL opportunities and stuff like that. But, I would echo the many people who have said that if you just go to giving these guys 5 years and just do away with redshirts, period, I think that would help solve some of these problems. Like, I think we've all reached a point now. I mean, we've basically been doing 6 years to play 5 now for the past few years. And, once we kind of get past those guys, like if this goes to just having 5 years in college, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Do you think that's just one of those things that they just don't want to let go of because it's what they're used to?
I mean, we've past few years now. I mean, we've got all of these Cam Rising and Alan Bowmans and all these guys, and I know people think that's like very funny and stuff, but like ultimately, like if you gave guys 5 years, there aren't going to be that many 5-year starters in college football. Like guys ultimately, want to go to the NFL and want to make more money, or guys, flame out and or are ready to be done playing football after 4 years or whatever. Like I just think that like kind of playing these games around red shirts and trying to kind of manage your clock and stuff like that. Like if you can kind of do away with that, I mean, look, if you went to that model, there'd still be guys who aren't getting enough playing time and guys would still transfer and stuff. I'm not saying it cures everything, but certainly in terms of like the mid-season having players try to opt out, I think you're seeing right now that is definitely scaring athletic directors into not making coaching changes too. So it's like, I think the effects of that and just kind of having guys quit on their team and stuff, as coaches like to put it, just not great. I think that's one way you can kind of fix it.
Hey, Max, did you read Dave Wilson's story on Barry Switzer?
Yeah, unbelievable.
It reminded me of back, and he brought up The Bootlegger's Boy, the book, the paperback book from years ago. It was unbelievable. We had Barry on yesterday, Coach Switzer, but what
did
Dave
you really?
Yeah, we did, and he seemed like he said 5 minutes and we went 17, and he got into everything. like he is so confused about this settlement thing. So I tried to help him with that, but man, he was locked in. He was great. And I just wanted to bring that up. You got
to experience. He really is going 100 miles an hour still at 87.
Absolutely. I mean, that guy runs Norman, Oklahoma. Not anybody else.
Absolutely. He's the king. Yeah, I thought it was a wonderful story by Dave Wilson that any of your listeners that haven't checked it out, take the time to do so. It's not a short story to read, but I know Dave went up to Norman, I think 3 different times to spend a lot of time around Barry Switzer, and man, just what a treat to kind of get to hang with a legend like that and kind of see, I think that the role he has in that community is just different than a lot of these guys. And, the way he treats his people is really special. And I thought the story about his daughter that he found late in life was incredible. So yeah, appreciate you mentioning that. I hope your listeners go take a little time here next few days and go find that one.
What's your, I guess, anticipation level for Red River? It's obviously a game where Vegas thinks this isn't going to be particularly close, and most people with the eyeball test don't think it's going to be particularly close, but there's the hope of, well, hey, it's Red River, crazier things have happened. Where do you sit on the anticipation for this one?
Well, you guys know I love going to Red River. So first of all, I'm starting from a place of deep envy that I will not be there.
Oh.
I actually will be in Boulder this weekend, so that would be interesting to talk about that game.
Yeah.
But I think I've covered enough Red Rivers to know like there was definitely some years when I was covering Texas for ESPN where it was like, kind of Charlie Strong era, early years and stuff where you're sort of like, man, this is going to be a slaughter. And, the line's crazy, stuff like that. And it's like when that game kicks off, it kind of doesn't matter like how, one team's going to have a way better season than the other. But like that game's always like totally up in the air, up for grabs. Whoever gets like the big momentum plays early has a chance to win the game. So like I'm not counting out Michael Hawkins and Oklahoma at all here. I think it will be a thriller. I think these are great defenses. So I don't think that it's going to be a 55-49 kind of game. I'd be pretty surprised by that. But yeah, I like Texas, but with Quinn Ewers just kind of easing right back into action here. I do think that Oklahoma, having the bye week is going to throw a lot of different stuff at Texas in terms of what they do with Hawkins. And I think it's going to be a ton of fun to watch.
Max, what do you think about that Kansas State-Colorado game? This one, I think after the Nebraska game, if you looked ahead on Colorado's schedule, like, well, that one's going to be a nightmare for them too, given what Kansas State is good at. But after we saw what Colorado did against UCF last week, or 2 weeks ago. Everything about them feels different to me now.
Agreed. I think you saw some people kind of whispering before the UCF games, like, all right, well, they're probably going to stop winning from here on out right now that you get deep into the Big 12 play. To me, that game in Orlando was a huge statement one for Coach Prime and for his team that, like, yeah, they are serious about contending in the Big 12 this year. And I think that this is going to be a tough spot. Once again, Kansas State, having to go travel to go play a game that I think kicks off at like 9:15 Central. Like that's a tough spot to be in. Obviously, didn't go well for them when they went to Provo. And yeah, I think that Colorado's defense is much improved statistically. It's like a top 15 defense in stop rate, which is surprising to see, but it's real. They're getting stopped on 75% of their drives against FBS competition this season. So I think that's impressive. Obviously, Shadur's playing at a really high level. And I think for Avery Johnson, it's a big road test. He failed the first one against BYU, but this is a great opportunity for them to, in a game that really I do think will kind of help set the conversation a little bit in terms of who are the front runners in the Big 12. I think if Colorado wins this, then that national attention on Colorado will ramp up all over again.
Yeah. And by the way, there was a report that Cam Rising actually will play Saturday.
Believe it when I see it.
Right.
Aren't we all at that point? Aren't we all?
No.
I think Cam Rising was definitely playing against Oklahoma State, and then he wasn't. Rough pregame warm up, and then Isaac Wilson played that game. So, would love to see a healthy Cam Rising the rest of the way here. And look, I think the Big 12 needs a healthy Cam Rising. Like I'm not saying that Utah would be like the lock to win the Big 12, but I do think that makes the race a lot more interesting and helps the chances of, kind of having some ranked teams there in the championship game and stuff like that. So, it's interesting to see what a healthy Cam Rising kind of finally looks like here. And I know part of that's just been kind of holding him out and waiting to see kind of when it looks right in terms of him throwing again. So, if he does start, curious to kind of see the quality of the play there.
How much did you enjoy last weekend? How surprised were you by some of those results, particularly Vandy and Alabama?
Man, it was a perfect sit on your couch at home weekend, wasn't it? I mean, it was just one of those, like, you're kind of flipping from game to game. It was like kind of that witching hour of all these games kind of ending around the same time. Obviously, it was up till like 2 because the Miami game was so late. But just an incredible weekend of college football. I think one of those that, everyone had kind of circled this current weekend as the one in preseason of like, man, this is the weekend in college football. But, the ones you kind of think are going to be snoozers, you can have a ton of top 10, top 11 teams go down. And, I think the Vandy one obviously was just the most stunning. And it's not like if you followed kind of the changes they made this offseason, you knew they'd be better. But for them to kind of have the poise to go play like that for 60 minutes against the Tide, unbelievable. It just shows you. I mean, that's why we love this sport, though, that those kinds of games are possible.
Oh my God, it was unbelievable. I kept just watching the score. I go, okay, I'll wait to the third quarter. I said, eventually, with the Baylor Iowa State winding down, I was able to catch that, and it was no fluke, none at all, not at all, and. They got to turn around. Now they have Kentucky, and it will be interesting to see how they handle the success this week.
Texas has got to go to Nashville after they play Georgia. How about that?
So they have Oklahoma, Georgia, OU and Dallas, rivalry, Georgia at home, and then at Vanderbilt. That's not what we expected to be maybe the biggest game they're going to have to play.
I mean, there's no point in calling it a trap game. Every Vandy game is a trap game from here on out, know?
Yeah. Look, my man Diego gets going. Yeah. I mean, he just he grew up a Johnny Manziel fan, so maybe he has
Did you see what happened with him yesterday? I think he was on ESPN doing an interview, and then they brought in Johnny Manziel during the interview. And he started talking back and forth, and Diego was just like absolutely thrilled with that. And it was a pretty cool moment. Yeah, it really was.
All right. I want to ask you, do you guys have a good, like, if I ask you today who's playing in Arlington, like, would you all give different answers?
I think so.
I think we did at the start of the year, although there was a clump of 2 to 3, 4. And I would say, I would say Iowa State. I'm still going to go with Iowa State, Kansas State.
Yeah.
And I had Utah.
I don't know how many people are looking at it right now and saying it's Iowa State BYU, but like maybe we've all been sleeping on BYU. I have no idea.
Well, obviously, at least for the first 5 weeks, but they were 5-0 this time last year, weren't they, Craig? What you said?
Yeah, they started off well last year and then kind of cratered. They do have a favorable schedule on paper, but they're just finding ways to win. Like, you can't but be impressed. They've come to Texas twice, won both those games, beat a really good SMU team, and they've won different types of ways. So, man, there's like 5 or 6 teams you just throw a combination. I'd be like, yep, I could see that. And then there's the rest of them that you're like, yeah, that TCU, nah, Baylor, nah. There's a few you can rule out. Oklahoma State, like, Max, there's some teams that are just the complete opposite of what we expected. It's kind of wild.
Dude,
but
if I told you it was like Colorado, Texas Tech, like looking at the standings, you'd be like, I mean, yeah,
no.
it's possible.
Yeah, no.
No, before the season, absolutely not. And looking at the standings, I'm like, oh, yeah, I could totally see that happening right now. Yeah.
Yeah, if you had told me that before the season, Max, I'd have been like, oh, man, we got to talk to Max's family. He may needs to go to a facility.
but I think this, if you've been watching Iowa State, and I don't know if a ton of people have, but like, man, they're doing a great job on both sides of the ball. Like, I do think that they got a shot to win the Big 12 this year, kind of finally put it all together. But man, it's going to be, I think, a pretty amazing race. I know Kenny Dillingham said a couple weeks ago, it's the ultimate league of did you see that score? And I think he's 100% right about that. It's going to be a lot of that going forward.
I agree. And then teams like Houston going to TCU and winning, all of a sudden they may not be a gimme. Well, they're obviously not. Iowa State now turns around, goes to Morgantown after dominating Baylor, especially in the last 3 quarters. Will be fun to see how they can turn because if they're real, they go win that game too. Not because they're coming off a huge win against Baylor. It wasn't a huge win. It was a win. It's just, I love it. I love chaos, and I hope we have the rest of it, not only with top 25, but also the teams in the conference too.
Even though it will result in only one playoff team from the conference, all this fun regular season will decimate any chances for a number 2. That's the kind of give and take.
Just 5 different 9-3 teams at the end of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All tied with a tiebreaker.
Yeah, that's just truth serum right there. You're right. Max, great stuff. Have fun. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck in Boulder. Have fun with that game.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. That's Max Olson, theathletic.com.